So you just got diagnosed with a completely craptastic disease. For me, it was multiple sclerosis, and it totally sucked. It wasn't just like a common cold or the flu or something you get over, a broken bone. It was like one of those labels, one of those iconic diseases that people like do fundraisers for and have telethons for and shit like that. And it was terrifying, totally freaky. So for you, maybe it's some other disease, but it's not small. It's like big. It might be life-threatening. It's going to be life-changing in some way or another, and it's tough. Every disease has its kind of symbols of the crappy things that happen to you if you get that disease, and it doesn't have to happen to you, but those symbols are out there. For MS, I gotta say, it's like the wheelchair, just living in a wheelchair. No disrespect for all the people who do live in a wheelchair, but if you're able-bodied and you see that, it freaks you out. It freaked me out when I got MS to think my days are numbered walking, and I'm gonna be confined to a wheelchair, even if that's like a problematic way of thinking about it. So for you, maybe your disease has some other horrible freaking symbols or reality or whatever, and you got to deal with that. You've got to deal with the fact that this label of this horrible word that you don't want to hear anyone talk about at all. You definitely don't want to associate with you or anyone you love. This label is now on you. It's like a team jersey, and on the back it says MS for me, and maybe for you, or maybe it's some other disease. So anyway, you were just diagnosed, and these are my thoughts, totally subjective, my thoughts about some of the shit you got to deal with, some of the things to think about when it's fresh. For me, this was fresh 3.5 years ago. I've had MS like 20 years now, but 3.5 years ago, I was finally diagnosed, man. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, and it sucked. And I think I dealt with it all right. I think I did okay. Anyway, these are my thoughts about what to do when you're newly diagnosed. All right, first thing is to chill out and take things slow. Now, I did not do this. I freaked out and tried to move quickly. And that's just not the way to go. You got to chill out and take things slow. If you've had this disease a little while or a long while, you can probably kick back a little bit and process and absorb it and take it in before you start making all kinds of decisions and doing all kinds of things. With MS, I started thinking right away when I was diagnosed, damn, I got to change my life in so many different ways. And I started thinking about that, like, oh, we got to sell our house because it's got 2 stories, and just all kinds of crazy shit going on in my head. Chill out and take it slow. You got to take some time just to absorb this new reality that you're living in. You've got to take some time to connect with other people and just do so many different things. So it's advice that's probably impossible to follow for many of us, or most of us, but I would say chill out, take things slow, and don't make any huge decisions right away. All right, now the second thing I would say is that if you got one of these big whopper-ass diseases, you're probably interacting with some doctors. In my case, it was neurologists, maybe it's like oncologists for you or some kind of specialist or whatever. And you're probably going to try to get a second opinion or a third opinion and get some perspective on what's going on. You'd be shocked at the difference in perspectives in different doctors that you see. I thought every MS doctor was going to say the same thing to me. In fact, I haven't found 2 MS doctors who say the same thing. They all have some differences, primarily in terms of like medications that they recommend. So you got to take some time, like I was saying, to chill out and take things slow. But in the meantime, there are some really important, powerful things you can do to like help yourself be well. I cannot emphasize this enough. With MS, dude, reduce your stress. Start getting your vitamin D levels up. Get them tested. It's either free through your provider, or you can get them tested for like $50 online. Get your vitamin D levels tested, and if they're low, get them up there by taking some vitamin D. If your disease is not MS, you probably got other things to consider, but diet, rest, stress, reduction, exercise, all those things are healthy no matter what. And you should start doing those things. Quit smoking, quit drinking, get on a healthy diet, get on a healthy sleep regimen, etc. It's not going to hurt. It's totally not going to hurt, and it just might help. It just might help. So I would say there's those preventative things you can do, like right off the bat, just to help yourself out when this thing is new. The next thing I would say is that, unfortunately, you are now in a position where you have to be a student of this disease. And if you're not a student of the disease, your doctor is just going to tell you stuff and you're just going to accept it as true. And unfortunately, I just don't think that's the best position to be in. So you might not want to do it, but you're going to probably have to start doing some research. And I would recommend research beyond the internet. Like truly beyond the internet. You got to read some books. At the library, at my public library, I realized really quickly that in the health and wellness section, there is pretty much a book for every damn disease. Not the obscure ones for sure, but even books that relate to some of the more obscure diseases. So I read, 2 or 3 books about MS, multiple sclerosis, and it just helped me so much understand this damn thing. There's even a book about the history of the disease, just to figure out, where it came from, how long it's been around, and how people have been treating it. So that kind of learning is really important, I think, so you can be your best advocate for yourself or a loved one or whatever. Again, it sucks. Not everyone wants to go back to school, but watch a documentary, read a book, read some websites, watch some YouTube videos, and just get a broader perspective. If you watch one YouTube video about your disease, if it's multiple sclerosis or something else, that's risky, man. Those single perspectives are just not always shared by everyone else in the community thinking about the disease. So I'd really recommend being a student of your illness. All right, the next 2 things I would recommend just relate with other people. They have to do with other people. Number 1 is that if you're going through something tough, you need some support. You need a therapist. If you've never been to a therapist before, it's not a nightmare to go to a therapist. I actually got one free through my job at the time, and it was just so awesome to be able to go in and talk to this dude. I don't think he was the best therapist, but it was really useful. Therapy, think about it. You can also find online support groups. Sometimes they're supportive, sometimes they're full of assholes and really a pain in your neck. But online support groups on Facebook, for instance, there are a bunch of them for different diseases. Support, and then also real life community. Like if you've got friends, rely on them. Friends, family, loved ones, that kind of thing. Like you can't go through this kind of stuff alone. Maybe you can. I don't know. I couldn't. I was looking for everyone for support. So therapy, support groups, community, that kind of stuff is really important. If you think being diagnosed with some big whopping ass disease is not a big deal, you can handle it yourself, that's great. But you're probably wrong, and you probably need some support from others. All right, so that all relates to this term disclosure. And disclosure is just like a fancy word for telling people that you're sick or that you've got some disease or whatever. And I think at first, as just a general rule, people get a disease and they think it's their obligation to tell everybody. Like, I got to go to work and tell everybody, or I've got to, tell my friends or whatever. In general, if it's not obvious, you have a choice. You have a choice of who you're going to tell. You do not have to tell your employer. You don't have to disclose to your friends who are jerks and not supportive. Disclose thoughtfully. If you tell everybody at once you've got MS or whatever you've got, it's going to be overwhelming because everyone's going to want to talk to you. You might want to think about strategically who you talk to and when. I know for me, it was most important to talk to certain family members and my kids. And then it was like friends, and then it was like colleagues and that kind of thing. So it's sort of like an onion skin kind of thing. But disclosure is important. It'll help you get that connection to community if the people you talk to are supportive. Okay, last couple things I would say for someone who's like fresh, like the diagnosis is fresh. One is don't get psyched out. It is just so easy to see this label, see this disease diagnosis as just like the end. And I don't know what you're dealing with, and maybe it is an end of some kind that's possible, but it's got to be, this is going to sound so cheesy, it's got to be like the beginning of something new. I've said this before on videos I've posted about MS, but I'll say it again because it was so valuable to me. My father-in-law was diagnosed with diabetes, and it sucked. He had to like change his whole life. It was like, threatened his vision and stuff. But he said that it was the best thing that ever happened to him, because it allowed him to gain like a new perspective and some new practices around like diet and exercise and stuff like that. In some ways, being diagnosed with the disease can be the best thing that happens to you. It can be life-altering. It can give you some clarity. In my case, I had been misdiagnosed and sick with this disease for like 17 years, and only with diagnosis did I finally realize what the hell was going on with me. So anyway, don't get psyched out. Like, don't count yourself out and don't get too psyched out. I know you're dealing with something serious, but at the same time, there might be like something empowering about finally knowing what the heck is going on with you. So my main advice to someone who's like new to this stuff is don't quit living. You got to keep living. Take things slow. The last thing I'm going to say, it's a little controversial. Not everyone agrees with me on this, but dang it, don't just listen to your doctor. I know with multiple sclerosis, the case is that neurologists almost all just prescribe medications to everybody, just like a one-size-fits-all remedy for the disease. And I have not taken that route, and I'm actually doing quite well. And I've connected with a lot of other people around the world, North America and elsewhere, who are also doing well, not on the meds. We are all resisting the advice of our doctors. So it's again, controversial advice. You don't have to take it. Do what's good for you. But I would say you got to be a little bit questioning. There are people out there looking to make a buck off of illness, and not just pharmaceutical companies. So anyway, I'm a little bit skeptical about mainstream medicine, but at the same time, I see my neurologist every year. I get that scan just to see what's going on with my lesions and whatnot. All right, thanks for checking out the video. This whole channel is about like health and wellness and multiple sclerosis and stuff like that. If you subscribe, you'll see more videos like this, and if you comment down below, I'm going to respond. I hope you're doing okay. Hang in there. You got this.